Welcome to the Not Even Wine with Dinner podcast. I'm your host, Kristen, and we are here to talk about all things life, love, loss, and liquor. So let's uncork the bottle and get this party started. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Not Even Wine with Dinner podcast. Thank you guys for joining me this week. This is episode lucky number 13. And the title of this one is called Adults Suck Too, How Peer Pressure Has No Age Limit. So if you've been a regular listener, then you would have listened to episode number 12, which was called You Drink Normal. And that is where this one kind of stemmed from. I felt it was really important to keep going on that topic because it was all about how people will say things like, why did you quit drinking? You drink normal. I don't see a problem. And it's because they're reflecting back on themselves. And I felt like it was important to talk about the peer pressure that comes along when you try to go sober. So that is what we're going to talk about today. Before I get into that, if you are watching me on video on YouTube, you will notice that I am wearing some of our swag, so my Not Even Wine with Dinner t-shirts. And this has the logo. It says nude across the front, which is the abbreviation for Not Even Wine with Dinner. And for the record, I didn't plan it that way. It just happened. But it's so great that I had to use it. And you will see the image on here. That's actually me holding a glass of wine upside down. So if you would like to get some of the Not Even Wine with Dinner or the nude swag, you can head over to bonfire.com/NEWWD. And that's where you can get a couple t-shirts. And then I'm about to start designing a few different ones as well as some mugs and stuff like that. So fun stuff. So if you want to be all in the nude, that's where you get the stuff. And I will put the link in the show notes. All right, so let's get cracking. So again, if you want to go back to the previous episode, it's number 12 called You Drink Normal. And that kind of is where this continues on from. But what I want to talk about today is peer pressure. And peer pressure, for the most part, you know, when we think of peer pressure, we think about how it starts in the schoolyard when we're kids. And a lot of it's innocent. And I'm talking about before we get into bullying. I'm talking about, you know, hey, I dare you. I dare you to try this. I dare you to do this. I'll show you yours if you show me mine. And obviously that gets really dangerous now with kids. I mean, kids do that naturally, but it's really dangerous now when everybody has a smartphone and they start taking pictures and recording things like that. So they do things because they want to please others, they want to get a laugh, and they don't want to be left out, basically because they're trying to avoid being different. And I think we all experience that in some way or shape or form. Nobody wants to be the outcast. You know, it's one thing to be unique. We want to be unique. We want to be ourselves. But then there are some who just want to blend in and kind of hide behind the scenes. But at the end of the day, we all try to avoid being different and being an outcast. And so that is where peer pressure really takes over. And I think that, again, it starts in the schoolyard because we want to be liked and accepted. And it never stops. Even if you become the most confident person in the world, we still want to be accepted by other people. And we can say all day long, I don't care what anyone thinks about me. I call bullshit. I totally call bullshit on that. We do. And that's why we do things that we do, whether it's as innocent as how we dress or where we go or how we portray ourselves or what we do online, and moves on to what we ingest, meaning what we drink. If we do drugs, we do things because we're either hurting or we're trying to be accepted in some way, shape, or form. As I said earlier, I think we're all searching for love. We're all searching for acceptance. We want to be liked. All right, so I don't want to beat the dead horse of that too long, but you know, where that goes is that we don't want to be picked on and bullied. You know, that usually gets a little further forward, or at least in my experience. You know, I'm old. I'm old now, relatively speaking. So, you know, we don't want to be picked on and bullied. And when I say it moves forward, what I mean by that is I'm not saying there's not bullying in elementary school. I think there is. There's that whole thing of, the boys pulling the girls' ponytails or pigtails because they like them, and kids kind of saying mean things. I'm sure with social media and smartphones, that's gotten worse. However, middle school, once the hormones start raging, that's when it really tends to ramp up and kids start to get bullying. Now, bullying to me has a lot of different formats. It has different forms and shapes that it takes. You've got physical bullying, actual, fighting or punching or hitting, kids biting when they're little, emotional, which is name calling and just berating somebody emotionally, and then psychological, which is getting a little deeper into maybe narcissism or manipulation, gaslighting, and things like that. So in my personal case, mine was the second one, which was emotional. I was bullied as a kid. I've mentioned this before. I was bullied in junior high school in 7th and 9th grade. I don't know why I had a reprieve in 8th grade, but and 9th grade was the worst. It was a gaggle, I'll call them a gaggle of mean girls that picked on me in my 4th period Spanish class. And it was brutal, and it was horrible and horrifying. And so there was always that sense of looking to be accepted. And I can remember all the way back to trying to just be nice to these people that were being so shit to me. I was nice to them. I'd say hello. Yes, I tried to do the avoiding thing, but I think, my mom probably told me, just ignore it, act like it's not happening, just don't engage. But I went almost a step further where I tried to be friends with these girls. I tried to be nice to them. I was like, I'd say hello or good morning or whatever and compliment them on their hair, their makeup, their clothes. The ones that dressed really nice, my mom worked in fashion retail, so I would try to maybe mimic some of the things or the styles they were wearing because I was desperate for that acceptance. And so when I got, in with the friends that started exposing me to alcohol and weed and stuff like that, they were separate. They were a separate group. They were already my friends, but they introduced me to different people that I probably wouldn't have normally been friends with. And so when the Budweiser and the and the joints started coming out, it was, I don't want to look different. I don't want to be different around these people. So I'm going to do what they're doing. So that was kind of that's the cliff notes of my story. And that just continued on. It continued through junior high school and college. And I was still seeking that acceptance and trying to be liked. And so I want to go into the age, and where I'm going with this is about adulthood. So when you're in your 20s, technically we're considered adults at 18 in the United States. And when we get into our 20s, we're still trying to find ourselves. Our brains have still not fully developed. I believe it's age 25, 27, somewhere in there before all of the little tentacles, as I'm going to call them, like all the little synapses connect in your brain. Because before that, they're just kind of floating around there like octopus legs, not connected to anything. And that's why teens and young 20s make bad decisions, because their decision making is not fully developed yet. And so, you're trying to process the process of adulting and you don't know how. So you're still trying to get that schoolyard acceptance. So when you're in your 20s and you think, I shouldn't drink anymore, if you've already been involved in that, it's very difficult because everybody your age, I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people your age are still in that stage of experimenting and looking for acceptance. And you're all kind of in the same boat, especially if you're in a college area and you're involved with college life, university life. Even though I wasn't in college very long, I was still in and out like part-time. And I was just still in that environment of everybody was drinking, everybody was smoking, everybody was doing something, and I didn't want to be the outcast. Even though as early as my early 20s, I would be waking up hungover, waking up from blackout, waking up going, ugh, I really should quit. I really should stop. I really shouldn't do this anymore. But that acceptance, that, call it love, even though it's not, sometimes, you're just wanting the attention and the positive reinforcement. And so, it's very difficult when everyone around you is doing the same thing and you're trying to quit, or you say or you think that you want to quit. So, it it's something that when you're young, it's far more acceptable to keep going. And so that's what I did. Kept going in my 20s and even into my 30s and 40s and whatnot. All right. So where I'm going with this whole long-winded introduction is I expect that this stuff would happen in my 20s. And then in your 30s, or at least in my 30s, you're in more of your career path and you're finding your way. Maybe you're in a relationship. Hell, I had a lot of friends that were already married with children. I was not. I was in a relationship, but I was living with somebody. I had a good career and, life was going cool, but I was heavily drinking in the midst of all that. And the way it looked different. But again, everyone was still doing it around me, whether it was at happy hours or when I was working with Crate and Barrel, which I did for a long time. We would have store openings, and store opening parties were intense. And it was some intense drinking. And there was a lot of, let's, be the center of attention. So that acceptance, again, was still there. And it tends to be, I think it's harder, and there's still a lot of industries where it's more accepted than others. Obviously, if you're working in the church, you're not dancing on a tabletop. But if you're working in, again, I was working in retail, and I've also worked in the boating industry. I worked in grocery. There was a lot of the quote unquote good old boys club where it was acceptable and expected. And so even as I started getting older, it was expected of you. And if you said you were not going to have another drink, or I'm good, even when I was still actively drinking, but maybe I was trying to say I don't want anything, I was getting peer pressure. That's where I'm going with this whole thing. It didn't stop in the playground. It didn't stop in junior high or middle school or high school. Even college. I was almost bullied in college in some ways. And going into my 30s and then into my 40s, it became shocking. So that's where I'm going with this about, like I said, the title is Adults Suck Too. Because, we kind of have this statement of like, oh, kids are mean. Kids can be really mean. Kids are cruel. It doesn't necessarily stop with children. I think that if a kid is mean, it's not uncommon for them to turn into a mean adult. And I'm not saying that happens with everyone. You hear stories of remorse of, oh my gosh, I was really horrible as a child. I didn't mean to do that. I made mistakes. I got caught up with a gaggle of girls that were mean to a friend of mine. And I kind of was part of that little event that happened. And it was somebody I was quite close to. And she knew I was involved, even though I denied it for years. But then I went ahead and outed myself and told her, you know what, I was a part of that. But I didn't tell her until I was almost 30, and I apologized. But that wasn't me. That was not the way that I was made. That was not in my DNA to be a shitbag like some kids are. And so where I'm going is adults can be mean too. And this is when you have to step back and look at why somebody is reflecting on you when you say, I don't want to drink, or I quit, or I'm cutting back, whatever it is, or I'm making a change in my life. This doesn't have to just be about drinking. So my first bout of sobriety, this is my second that I'm on now. My first one, I was 42. And that's where all of these comments came from. You drink normal. What do you mean you're not drinking? Not even wine with dinner? What's wrong with you? Why would you possibly stop? Like what? It was like a lot of the, as I call it, there was a lot of bumbling and questioning that just felt rude. It felt bullying. It just felt bad. I had so many people ask me like if I had a problem, and I really thought like I never said it. I guess I'm saying it now to whoever's listening, but it was kind of like, that's none of your business. I mean, why would you possibly ask somebody who's telling you that they've quit a substance, whatever the substance is? I don't care if it's alcohol, which is legal, or if you were smoking meth, whatever you're doing, when you say I've stopped, for somebody to ask you if you had a problem is just, I don't know, it's quite shocking to me. I feel like it's quite, I guess, ballsy and unnecessary. So what I want you to do with all of this is just take a step back. If this is you and you're the person who is almost the victim, I guess, in this, is that somebody's saying to you all these things. What I want you to do is step back and realize that what they're doing is I say reflecting. I'm sure there's a better mental health term for it. It's like a mirroring thing. It's like, if she has a problem, or if she thought she had a problem, and I did the same exact thing right alongside of her, does that mean I have a problem? Or maybe I have a problem, or shit, do I have a problem? And it's harder to do when you're young. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't think these things if you're in your 20s or 30s or 40s. Like, I'm in my 50s now, but I want you to look at why somebody's asking you these questions in this manner, and don't take offense to it. Step back from it and look at them. Don't allow yourself to be sucked into the hype that you're doing something wrong when you're actually doing something good for yourself. It doesn't even have to be about drinking. It could be that you're changing jobs. Maybe you're getting a divorce. Maybe you're moving. I mean, when I moved from Dallas to Chicago, you would have thought that I don't even have a good analogy for it. I mean, you would have thought that I killed somebody. I had so many people that were in just shock. Like, why would you leave? Why would you do that? Your parents, your boyfriend, your this, your job, blah, 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 blah. And it went on and on and on. And it was like, dude, it's something that I feel strongly about and passionate about. And I want to move to this city. I don't want to be in this area anymore. I had my reasons, and it didn't matter what my reasons were. I justified them to the people that I needed to. And the rest of it was like fray. It was kind of like the chaff and the wheat. It was like, not that the people that were questioning me didn't matter. It was just, they were questioning like my best intentions about my own life. I think that's the way you have to look at it. Is somebody asking you out of concern? Are they asking you because they're being nosy? Why are they questioning what you're doing for yourself when you feel like what you're doing for yourself is good? Especially if it's somebody who's in their middle ages. I don't want to put an exact number on it. I just felt like there were people over 40. I had people well into their 60s, maybe even early 70s that were giving me some shit when I was like, I haven't drank for 6 months. I remember one guy at a boat show who insisted on buying me a painkiller, which is an extremely strong rum drink that they serve at a lot of the boat shows. It's all kinds of layers, and you can get it in different strengths, like 1, 2s, and 3s. They're really expensive. They're very strong. They're very good. They're really tasty. But I had kind of gone around the mulberry bush, like with, no, I'm good, thanks, but no thanks, without giving the explanation. And finally, they all came to our booth. They put all the drinks down. They all started drinking, and mine just sat there, and it was getting watered down. And finally, the guy was like, "You haven't touched your drink." And I said, I'm not drinking. I quit drinking. And he literally dropped his jaw open and like dropped almost half to his knees, like bent over. It was like this really freaking extreme response. It was like, what is wrong with you? I mean, he almost dropped to the floor like, oh my God, I didn't know. Like, what are you talking about? Oh my God. Oh my God. And it went on. It was like so dramatic. And this is an acquaintance. This was not somebody I was overly close to. It was mostly just somebody that I knew through boat shows. And he was one of the first ones that was like, oh, I'm just so sorry. Oh, I didn't know. Oh, did you have a problem? And it was the first time I'd encountered anybody like that. And it was just like, I didn't know what to say because I'd never encountered anything like this before. And I think I said, well, no, I bumbled. I bumbled around it. And I was like, no, I just needed to stop. And, drank a long time and, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I didn't know you had a problem. And it just kept going on like it was this very extreme reaction. And I just kind of now reflecting on it today, 15 years later, I'm just like, what the hell? Like, what was wrong with you? So my advice to those of you who are that person, don't do that. Try not to react like that. If somebody tells you they're not drinking or they quit or they've stopped, if you knew they had a problem, then you could say, good for you. Or, oh, wow, I'm proud of you. Oh, wow, that's great. Or excellent. Whatever the case may be. If you're really close to somebody, then they've probably already talked to you personally about it. But, back to you as the person making the change. Try really hard. Don't judge the person, but you don't have to accept that type of behavior. Again, I'm not saying that you have to be reactive and nasty about it, but you don't have to accept it and try not to let it affect your self-esteem. People don't like change, even though change is necessary in life. I like change. Maybe I shouldn't say people don't like change. Not all people, I should say, like change. I like change. I don't do well static. I don't do well doing the same thing over and over again. I like some routine, but I don't like repetition. I like change. I like to change and evolve and develop. And so again, when somebody is giving you a hard time about a change that you're making, it makes them want to look back at themselves and think about whether or not that's a change that they need to make. And again, that's something that can be very scary. One thing, especially when it comes to any kind of substance abuse, people don't want to quit because of the social change that it's going to cause in their lives. And that's a big fear. Again, the younger you are, I think the harder it is. Again, I didn't expect the peer pressure I got in my 40s and 50s, but when you're drinking, there's a lot of sociality around it. There's a lot of social pressure. And so when you're thinking about making that type of a change, the first thing people tend to do is go, how can I get through this event without whatever the substance is? And so that's a change that's very difficult for people. And it was a change for me, for sure. Now I'm okay with it. It doesn't bother me. I can be around people who drink. I don't like to be around drunk people. But if I'm at an event and people are having a couple drinks or a glass of wine, I don't care. It doesn't affect me. Once people start getting weird and tipsy and drunk, I'm out of there. I don't have any interest. And I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. Like, being around a bunch of drunk people when you're sober is not fun. And it's quite shocking to see how people behave when you're not on the same level that they are. So again, my whole point here is that it doesn't stop on the playground. So if you're new and sober curious, I want you to prepare yourself for this, but I don't want that to be a deterrent into not quitting. You just have to have that preparation. I feel like that's, like I talked a couple weeks ago about the stages of change, and this third, I think it's the third now, I should know this, but the third stage of change is preparation. It's when you're preparing for the change. So if you're sober curious, and here you're listening to me talk about how people are mean and they can be bullies and they can be kind of shitty about, you wanting to make a change, don't let that stop you. Just put that in your toolbox. Put that in your toolbox of preparation for the change that you're about to make. And it will make all the difference in the world. And with all that said, another episode that I recommend that you listen to if you haven't is EP number 1, No is a Complete Sentence. And that's one that I swear by it. When someone asks you if you want to drink, you should just be able to say no, not having to say no, but no, because just no. You don't have to give an explanation. And I do talk about it in that episode. And some of it's probably going to be a repeat. This is a topic I'm very passionate about. Obviously, sobriety is a topic I'm passionate about, but how you accept what people will come at you with is very important. And it's very important for you to know going forward in your journey with sobriety, if that's the change you're going to make. And like I said, probably 3 times in this episode, this doesn't have to just be about substance. So if you are going to get a divorce, or if you are thinking of moving or changing jobs, you might get the same reaction. Just as I said a minute ago, when I moved to Chicago, you prepare the same way. Go back to the episode about the stages of change. You want to prepare yourself for how your change is going to affect the people around you, whether they're close or they're not, because change affects people. And people by nature are just freaking nosy, because we're such a share or oversharing society that people get weird when you don't want to give them your information. When you say no without a follow-up, people are like, whoa, what do you mean no? Or what do you mean you're moving? They want more, because that's the society that we've created with all of the technology. So again, this is all about preparation. I'm not saying all adults suck, by the way. I have lots and lots and lots of good friends. But again, the point here was that it doesn't stop on the playground. It goes into an adult, it goes into adulthood, and you just need to prepare yourself. Hopefully you don't encounter this too much. And sure as hell, hopefully you're not one of those people that feels the need to badger somebody when they're making a big life change, especially if it's something that's good for them. If it's something that's good for them and you're reflecting about it on yourself, keep it to yourself. Or use that opportunity to say, how did you do it? Or tell me more about why you did it, instead of coming at it from a level of defensive-ness. Come on the offensive with questions, with inquiries, with empathy, sympathy, all the ones that we want from you. Instead of negatives, we want positives. All right, my friends. So that's where we're going to leave it today. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode, and we'll catch you guys next time. So be sure and go over to bonfire.com/NEWWD. Check out the swag, and I will see you guys in the next one. As always, stay safe, stay sober. Just a quick note of the legal jargon. I am not a medical or psychiatric professional, nor am I a recovery or addiction specialist. This podcast is for information use only, and I am simply sharing my own experiences with sobriety, drinking, mental health, and wellness. I'm not here to diagnose or to treat. So if you're struggling and you feel like you are in immediate need, please contact a medical professional or call 911. Thank you guys again. Stay safe, stay sober.